am so excited. We have a special guest today, Dr. Kitty J. Boitnott. Dr. Kitty spent 30 years as a public servant to us all as a school teacher in our school systems. When she started to experience going into school administration, she started to experience her own burnout from an incredible amount of stress that she had. So she has now made it her passion as she successfully took a 30-year career as a teacher, and she transitioned into a career coach, helping other educators and professionals find their way to new careers and helping them to manage the stress that was really affecting their life in a negative way. She also has her PhD in educational leadership. She has been named one of the top 25 coaches online by Career Toolkit, and also one of the top 20 female coaches to follow by Talent LMS. She is a published author of 3 books, including Stressed, Stretched, and Just Plain Overwhelmed, as well as a consistent contributor to Forbes magazine. So I ask you to welcome Kitty. Kitty, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Sharon. I'm really happy to be here.
We're so excited to talk to you in a time where we all are managing stress at a different level because we have stress that's coming from the outside.
Right.
With COVID-19 and just so much of the financial stress that's happening for all of us now. And so we have moms who are at home and dads who are at home trying to teach their children. You know, we have people that are working from home with their family interruptions. There's just a lot going on in our life, let alone we're not all seeing the people that we love as much as we were before. And that's a different kind of stress. So I'm hoping you can talk to all of us about the effects of stress, because I know as an executive, I was experiencing all of the effects of stress. I was a stressed out executive, working sometimes 15, 16 hours a day, and not understanding that I was harming myself physically by the amount of stress in my life. So if you can just speak to how stress affects us, and then some of the tools that we have to monitor and actually help manage stress more effectively on a daily basis.
I'd be happy to. In fact, all of that is the subject of my ebook on stress, which you referenced, the Stressed, Stretched, and Just Plain Overwhelmed. And I, like you, I didn't appreciate just how much stress could affect the body or the mind or the spirit until late in my term as president of the Virginia Education Association. I recognized in the spring of my last year in office that I was running on empty. I was managing to go through the motions, and thankfully, just by the grace of God, I didn't get sick. I had started to experience high blood pressure during my campaign to become president of the VEA, but I had not ever really appreciated just what stress could do to you. And that particular job had been especially stressful for 100 different reasons we don't have time to go into today. But as I said, I recognized that I was experiencing burnout, which is why I decided not to go back into the classroom and instead to start studying stress and to consider how I might help teachers who are stressed out and feeling overwhelmed moving forward. In my study of stress, what I've discovered is that when we are overstressed, and certainly right now, I think we're probably at the highest level of stress as a society that we've ever been, between COVID, economic uncertainty and fragility, social unrest, the impending election, and all of the stuff that goes on with that, the uncertainty that's everyone, I think, would be fair to say, is feeling. And like you say, all of those factors are outside of us and outside of our control, and yet they are impacting us on multiple levels that we may or may not be aware of. So the first thing to do, if you start to feel like you're just stressed out, you're not able to concentrate, you're not able to focus, you're not able to do a lot of the things that you were always able to do before, stop for a moment and consider all the things that have been added to your plate, your proverbial plate, and how that has impacted your everyday life, your routine, in fundamental and profound ways. And in my book, what I recommend are 7 simple and yet not always easy practices to implement in our day-to-day routine that can help to build resilience. You know, one of the things about stress is that if we are experiencing chronic stress the way we all are right now, we can deplete our bodies of all kinds of hormones that have a definite impact on our health and sense of well-being. And one of the things that you can do to restore the balance is follow these 7 tips. So the first one is to stay hydrated. Your body, your brain, your entire system depends on your body being properly hydrated. And most of us go about our business every day mildly to severely dehydrated. I have a friend who ended up in the emergency room a while back. He thought he was having a heart attack. His heart was racing. He was sweating profusely. He was sure he was having a heart attack. But he had just finished a Zumba class, and turns out he was just dehydrated. He hadn't drunk enough water ahead of the Zumba class to keep his body properly balanced. So if you are doing a lot of exercise and know you're going to be sweating, or an especially hot day, drink extra water. But in general, in order just to be safe, we should be ingesting 2 ounces per pound of water to keep our trillions of cells in our body, all of our organs operating the way they should, and to keep our brain hydrated so that we can stay sharp and focused. And if you do start to feel dehydrated, it's too late. You're already beyond where you need to be safe. So keep drinking water throughout the day, even though you may not necessarily be thirsty.
I think people just don't know that, Kitty.
They really don't. You have to kind of be interested in this kind of stuff, or you don't pay attention to it. And if you are thirsty, what it generally means is that your brain is signaling to your body, hey, lady, gentleman, I need water. And by the time the brain is partly dehydrated, you're feeling foggy, you're not as alert, you're making poor decisions. You might even cause an accident or be part of an accident because your reflexes aren't what they should be. So it may sound like I'm harping on the importance of water, but it really is just as important as I'm saying it is. So that's the number one thing. And ironically, that's the cheapest thing that people can do, and should be the easiest thing that they can do if they will just create a habit of drinking consistently from morning to evening throughout the day. Now, I would suggest that you stop around 6 or 7 if you go to bed between 10 and 11, just so you're not getting up in the middle of the night to eliminate the water you drank into the evening.
I love that, Kitty. You know, the other thing that I have started to do, I actually keep a tab every day so that I can be honest with myself about the amount of water that I'm drinking. So I literally have a tab on my phone, and I go on, and every time I drink a glass of 8-ounce water, right, which is about my water glass, I literally write down, and I ensure every day that I drink like 8 to 12 glasses of water. So I love that
what you need
about hydration.
You know, and they even have, it's a little pricey, but if you need a reminder, they have water bottles that have alerts that you can set, and it'll let you know every half hour if you haven't drunk something. So you can find all sorts of prompts to help you to remember. So drinking water is the first thing. The second thing is to eat well. And when we're really stressed, we tend to want to go to the comfort foods. At least I know I do. The sugary foods, the foods that are high in starches and not necessarily all that good for you. But our brain is signaling that we're looking for some sort of comfort. So in order to minimize that, we need to keep our body nourished with the proper nutrients and minerals that come from whole grains, whole fresh fruits, whole vegetables, fresh out of the produce part of the grocery store as opposed to the central aisles. So as many whole foods as you can make, as many as you can feed your family, those are the foods that give you the minerals and nutrients that the cells in your body need and your brain needs to function properly.
I always think, Kitty, it's so interesting that when people undergo, where they have some type of condition, whether it be cancer or autoimmune disease, they are always referred back to a diet that's exactly what you're asking us to do, which is full of vegetables and nutrients. So
right.
It's interesting trying to find ways to incorporate them. Even like I drink a green smoothie, but it has a lot of vegetables in it. And with the fruit in there, it actually tastes good. But I love that you're talking about whole food and nutrition.
Well, but no, smoothies are good because they're made up of the whole, hopefully whole fresh fruits and vegetables. The third thing is not to forget to exercise. And in these days of social isolation, people may be afraid to go too far away from home or to run the risk of running into a lot of people and perhaps being exposed to the virus. But that doesn't mean that you can't walk your neighborhood, take the dog for an extra walk a day, do something that will get you up off your butt and outside for fresh air and a brisk walk, or if you're a runner, go for a run. Whatever you enjoy doing. I used to enjoy aerobics, step aerobics before I started having trouble with my back. And I really enjoyed that. Something that would get my heart rate up and cause me to sweat so that I would just feel that much better. Because when we do that, our endorphins, that's one of the hormones we need for a sense of well-being, our endorphins go up when we are exercising. So that's one of the reasons that exercise is so good for us. Then it's important for us to not forget to breathe. And most of us tend to breathe shallowly, especially if we're sitting in front of our computers all day, especially if we're feeling a lot of stress. We simply don't think to breathe deeply, and we need to take short breath breaks every few hours. So stand up from your desk, breathe all the way down into your diaphragm, do that 2 or 3 times, a slow breath in and a slow breath out. You'll actually feel the tension drain out of your shoulders and your neck, and you'll feel that much better. The byproduct is that you're feeding your trillions of cells in your body and your brain oxygen that they need as much as they need H2O from the water that you're drinking. So you're helping your body to regulate itself and to feel better when you're breathing properly and making it a habit to breathe deeply a few times a day.
I love that, because I think, isn't it true, Kitty, that it helps us make better decisions?
Oh, absolutely. It centers us in a way that we don't tend to feel if we're forgetting to breathe on a regular basis. I also recommend people have a hobby, something that will take their mind off of what's going on in the world that's causing them to be so stressed. You know, if you have a hobby, like for me, it's reading. I love to read mystery thrillers and Grisham and Baldacci mysteries. I love those. I lose myself in them, and I can get away from the news and get away from the social media that may cause me more stress than I realize as I'm looking at my news feed. So something that will take you away from the worries of the day and that you can engage in on a regular basis, if not every day, 3 or 4 times a week. It could. My sister recently took up knitting, and so she's taken up knitting and created beautiful, colorful blankets for everybody. So she's enjoying that. She's recently retired, so she's finding ways to fill her time now that she's not working. I also, and I don't think I mentioned this earlier when we were talking, but it's important to develop a practice of prayer or meditation or both to help to minimize our stress. When we are feeling particularly stressed, it's easy to feel unplugged from our higher power, whatever you decide to call it, God, the source, the creator, whatever you choose to call that higher power that we all tend to feel, except maybe for the professed atheists. But most of us, I think, recognize that there is something out there greater than ourselves. And it's important to plug into that and to allow ourselves to let go on occasion and recognize the things that we don't have control over, and to simply have to be okay with that we don't have control over it. And then finally, there's sleep. And I know that you're going to ask me about that in a few minutes.
Yeah,
All I'll say is that we don't value sleep nearly as much as we should.
Yeah, and for all of you who don't know, Kitty's actually a sleep expert. And I know that this comes up a lot with myself and other people that I coach and friends of mine, is how they sometimes are struggling with sleep and getting enough sleep. Even those that have young families and being at home now so much, they struggle with getting enough rest. There's too much to do. And so I'm hoping that, Kitty, you'll talk to us about really the effects of sleep and then some of the ways that we can manage to get more sleep, some of the science behind sleep.
Right. Yes, I'm a sleep science coach. And you know what I've learned, Sharon, is that over time, we learn to teach that which we need to learn.
Yes.
So yeah. I was stressed out. I needed to learn about stress so that I could teach others about stress. And now, you know, I know about sleep because I needed to know about sleep. And now I can teach other people about sleep. So here's what I learned about sleep. And when I was studying the effects of sleep on the body and the brain, I was flabbergasted by some of what I learned because I had no idea. But the thing is, we kid ourselves when we tell ourselves we can delay and defer sleep. We can catch up on the weekend. There's no such thing as catching up. If you lose sleep, you lose it. And the problem with losing sleep, when we're young, we think we're resilient. We can, you know, I pulled my share of all-nighters in college, and I'm sure other people did as well. But what I didn't know then is that our brain needs 6 to 8 hours of sleep every single night in order for it to properly do its job of cleaning out and clearing. Think of it as clearing out the trash. Because what happens during the day is that our brain is functioning and the cells are putting off toxin material, waste material, literally waste material that gather around the cells and stay there all through the day. In fact, they build up all through the day because we're so busy doing our day-to-day work and doing our day-to-day activity. And so the brain is building up all this toxic waste. And during the sleeping hours, what happens is the brain starts to clean out its own toxins. And it's literally the bloodstream comes through and brushes away and clears away and sweeps away those toxin wastes and flushes it out through the brainstem, which in the morning when we go to the bathroom, we eliminate. Now, if we're not getting that, and this particular routine occurs usually between 2 and 6 in the morning, right? So if you're not going to bed early enough to allow your brain to go into that rhythm, that routine from 2 to 6, it can't clean out those toxins. And certainly if you're up at 2 o'clock in the morning, you're interrupting the clearing. It won't happen when you're awake. It's only happening when you're asleep. And enough nights of interrupted sleep where you're not getting that quality sleep and you're not cleaning out that toxin material. There are studies that are increasingly pointing to early onset dementia and Alzheimer's because people aren't getting the sleep that they need. I told a coach friend of mine that a while back, and he said, "Oh my gosh, you just scared the bejesus out of me," because he's one of those that stays up late at night and gets up early in the morning, and he's not allowing himself the time that he needs to get the sleep that he needs. Most of us aren't, and many of us experience interrupted sleep because of hormonal disruptions in our bodies, or because we had a glass of wine too late in the evening and it's caused us to wake up in the middle of the night and feel stimulated instead of restful. Or we've got worries about finances or family issues, or we're grieving. You know, over 200,000 families have lost a loved one to COVID. And so there's a lot of grieving going on. And grief and disruption and upheaval. I just recently wrote a series of articles about the effect of upheaval in our lives. That kind of disruption in our routine can create all sorts of sleep deficits that we need to pay attention to. And if sleep has become a challenge for anybody who may be listening to this message, I want to share that you can do something about it, but you have to be intentional and deliberate. And part of what you need to do is decide for you how many hours of sleep you need in order to be functional, not only functional, but highly productive through the day. Now, some people, the general rule is for adults, 6.5 to 8 hours is about the right range. However, some people need closer to 9 hours to feel fully rested. And some people can get by on 5.5 hours. It's very unique. So the first thing is, how many hours do you need to feel your best? And that's what you want to be creating your routine around. So if you have to be up at 6 o'clock in the morning, because that's what you have to do to get to work or to do whatever you need to do for your family, then you work your way back, to 8 hours, 8.5, 9 if you need it. That's your bedtime. And then you need to start slowing everything down an hour before that. Create a routine that you turn off the lights or dim the lights so that your brain isn't tricked into thinking it's still daytime. Your brain needs darkness in order for it to start getting the signal, hey, it's getting time to go to sleep. Turn off your computer, turn off the Blu-ray devices, the TV. Don't watch anything that's overstimulating too close to bedtime. Don't read anything that's overstimulating too close to bedtime. Read something dull. Read that report from work that you've been putting off reading, because you want everything to slow down so that your brain can get the signal. It is time now to rest. Allow yourself to go to sleep, and then hopefully you'll sleep through the night. Now, if you have a problem with that, you might want to see your physician about what he or she might recommend that you do to get a better night's sleep. Melatonin is an option for some people, but I would recommend that you talk to your physician before you start taking it, because it might interfere with any other medications that you're taking. But I really cannot emphasize enough the importance of creating that nighttime ritual. Now, if you have a family, that means you need to have a powwow with everybody in the family, because this won't work if you have everybody going to bed except 1 or 2 people and they're still blaring their music or the TV or up and about and bumping around in the kitchen. Everybody's got to be on board. But if I truly believe if everybody really understood how critically important sleep was to their well-being, we'd be far less cranky and irritable. We would be eating better, because the lack of sleep triggers our appetite, causes us to want to go for those high sugary foods, those comfort foods. We would be taking in the water that we need. We would be getting the exercise we need, because we wouldn't be tired all the time. Sleep is really the central key to a sense of well-being and functionality and high productivity and creativity. There's a
Thank
study from Duke that says that people who are sleep deprived are not as creative and don't problem solve at the same level as people who are getting the number of hours that they need.
I love that, Kitty. And we are in an environment. I even know of some young people and they stay up until the middle of the night,
Oh, I
and
know.
it does later affect their schoolwork. So I think finding a ritual and helping people to go to bed early enough, right, to where they
Early enough.
actually get to sleep. But you've given us some incredible detail on the importance of sleep and how to achieve it. And I really appreciate that because I know I struggled too with waking up in the middle of the night. And I have actually gone to my doctor and tried to get help. How do I find a way to sleep better? And now I am. So
Good.
thank you
Good.
for that. I know how different it is when I wake up feeling rested
Oh,
compared to
amen.
waking up and feeling tired. So it's an enormous difference. Well, I think you're starting to see how much Kitty has to speak to us about, but I don't want to end this interview without talking to Kitty about how people can make a career transition from something perhaps that they've been doing, but that is causing them to be stressed out, and how they can change and end up in a fulfilling career that they are more passionate about and driven to do, that feeds their soul.
Right.
So Kitty, will you talk to us about career transitioning?
Yes, ma'am. In fact, career transition coaching is the central focus of my business. I am a certified stress management coach and help my clients with their stress level. But the main function that I do in my business is coach people who are ready to make a career change or to transition from, in my case, the classroom into some other line of work, because I mostly work with burnout teachers who are ready to make a change. I usually start all of my conversations with prospective clients with this question. If I were to give you a magic wand and you could have, be, or do anything in the world without worrying about how you might make that happen, do you know what it would be? And interestingly enough, only about 2 out of 100 people have a quick or ready answer for me. 98% can't tell me. They'll, gosh, gee, that's a really good question. I wish I knew. And the dilemma, I believe, is that we haven't given ourselves permission to really think about what is it that we would do if we had that magic wand. We think about what we need to do in order to make a living. And we have put such an emphasis on making a living that we have forgotten that the point is to make a life.
Oh, that's beautiful, Kitty.
And so I encourage my clients to really get in touch with what they feel their true purpose and passion is. When I was in the midst of my own career transition, I only knew two things. I have no idea what I was going to be doing. And coaching was on the bottom of the list of anything I had ever thought about. Because honestly, back in those days, I didn't think it was a real job. And I couldn't imagine anybody paying me for advice that I would gladly give for free. So I hadn't even entertained the idea of becoming a coach of any kind. But the two things I knew for sure were that somehow, after 37 years of working with teachers, I wanted to stay connected to teachers. I know teachers. I know their heart. I know their dedication. I know they're smart. I know they have a off-the-chart work ethic. And many of them underestimate what they have to offer the world. They have adopted the sense of, well, I'm just a teacher and I don't think I can do anything else. When they have so many talents, so many abilities, so many skills that they have built up over the years, that they just need to learn how to translate into the language of the person who's hiring, as opposed to keeping it a teacher type resume. I knew I wanted to stay in touch with teachers. And the other thing I knew for sure was that I wanted to be a helper. On the Enneagram chart, I come up a number 2, which I think is a helper. And those were the only two things I knew for sure. So what it came out of that was a desire to help those teachers who had come to the end of the road like I had, who didn't want to teach anymore. And for most of the clients I work with, all they want for sure is to leave the classroom. They don't know what else they want to do instead. They don't even know what they'd be qualified to do. They don't know how to start a job search. They don't know how to begin any kind of a career transition. So they need help. But the first thing they need to decide is, what is it that they want for themselves in their profession, and how will they go about helping? Because most of the teachers that I talk to, at the end of the day, they're people, persons. They want to be helpers. They want to continue to teach in some way. They just have burnt out with the demands of the classroom. And I can't tell you, I just saw on Twitter, I think it was yesterday, a teacher who was in tears. And she kept saying, I'm not the only one who feels this way. There are others who feel this way. And she was expressing her sense of overwhelm and overwork and the sense of too much responsibility being put on her shoulders and not being given enough help or appreciation or support to do the job that she'd been asked to do. And I know a lot of teachers are feeling that way. They're overworked, they're overwhelmed, they don't feel like they're doing enough, even though they're giving 110%. And at some point, that kind of stress, that kind of overwhelm, it's unsustainable. And if a teacher is at the point of feeling like, I can't see myself doing another 10 or 15 or 20 years of this, then it's time to make a change, because life is simply too short.
Kitty, it just absolutely breaks my heart that there are teachers that are feeling unappreciated and going through those pieces, because, you know, I've always been one of the advocates. I was so grateful to my children's teachers and every teacher that I've had in my life. And I just want so much for all of the teachers to understand that they are deeply appreciated. And what I'm most grateful for is that there is someone like you that can help them in this transition time if they do choose to change after all of their years of service and do something that is more rewarding and more fulfilling.
Right.
And I know one thing for sure after studying you and reading your book is that you are the right person to help them. And I just want you to know all that we have, like, Kitty, you are an incredible addition. It always fascinates me how our experiences, sometimes those that are so heartbreaking that we feel like we're not even going to make it through the transition, can then help us become good coaches and helpful to other people once we've found the way to show people the way. And that's what you so generously do.
Thank you. And I do want to say, it's not that I would like to lure every teacher out of the classroom, because Lord knows we need good teachers.
Yes, we do.
God bless every single one who still loves it and feels excited about teaching every day, because we need as many of those folks as possible.
Yes.
But I'm here for the ones who have just decided this is not the career for me. And some of them have known it for years that they needed to make a change and got stuck, didn't know how to make the change. And now they're more than ready to go, but they don't know how to get started. And that's why I'm here.
Yeah, and to show the possibility of that, because I know that you and I both transitioned. I transitioned from a high-level job as an executive and to something that I deeply love now, and I can wake up every day and feel passionate about, and without the stress that I experienced before. So it's like all of those crazy experiences became something that was like one of my greatest gifts now, to give back. And that's what you're doing. And the more of us out here that have successfully transitioned, the better off we are, I think, for everybody. So I want to take the time to thank you deeply for being with us today and sharing all these incredible things about our sleep and our hydration and ways that we can take care of ourselves in this sometimes overly stressful and overstimulating and overwhelming world that we're experiencing. And I want to let all of you know that Kitty's website is right down below here, and that she has generously chosen to give all of you a gift of her ebook, Stress, Stretched, and Just Plain Overwhelmed. So you'll see the link below to get to her free gift to all of you. And Kitty, thank you so much for taking the time to join. For those of you that don't know, Kitty and I had a really beautiful meeting at one point, and my mom's name was Kitty. And she also had a Southern accent like Kitty. And so she was kind enough to let me experience some of my grief with her in a loving and kind and generous and supporting way. So thank you so much, Kitty, for you, for what you do, and for being with us here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.